For the British Grand Prix, the home of British motorsports and one of the most iconic circuits on the calendar, as PSG F3 rolls into a crucial stage in the heart of the championship this season. We arrive here off the back of a dramatic race in Spain, a race that will prove to be a turning point for the title fight. Milan Di Ossi produced one of the drive of his seasons, defended brilliantly in the closing laps to take a vital victory, and with it all came with a championship lead. Came calm under pressure, decisive when it mattered the most, and defended beautifully, and was at the right place at the right time to firmly hold off. I think he was at the time. From Evan Nasland, unfortunately for him, Spain was a weekend of frustration, or shall I say Monday for frustration, as an incident on the first lap, which left him with a broken wing, almost immediately forced a damage limitation and cost him the championship lead in the process. So a stark reminder how quickly momentum could change in a championship fight, and if we're looking to bounce back too. Now, all eyes to Silverstone. This is a circuit that demands absolutely commitment, speed, fast-flowing and unforgiving, from the high-speed swamp of Cops to the relentless rhythm of Maggis, Becky's and Chapel. Confidence and position are everything here. One mistake, can unravel an entire lap or an entire race. Qualifying will be absolutely critical too. Track position matters, clean air is priceless, and nailing a single perfect lap around Silverstone can define the whole race weekend. With the championship finally balanced and pressure mounting, this session feels as important as ever we've seen so far. To get tucked in, the stage is set, the margins are tight, and the stage could not be higher. This is Silverstone at PSGL F3, and the championship is far from settled. My name is Jamie through this 80-minute qualifying session, and alongside me tonight is Milan Langer. How you doing, mate?
I'm alright, thank you very much, and I'm excited to be here because the Silverstone, the British Grand Prix, always an entertaining one, at least on commentary. Maybe I don't enjoy it as much on the driving, but I certainly do every time I'm in the commentary box. It's always a track that provides great action, great strategic plays as well. So I'm looking forward to see what we're going to witness tonight, especially in this championship fight, which still is very close at the top, with only 5 races remaining. The top 3 separated by only 12 points. So can Milan Di Ossi go for 3 for 3? That would be quite impressive. First 3 wins in a row since actually the season opener first 3 races. So I mean, if he can't tonight, then well, he certainly puts one hand on the championship trophy, that is for sure. But we know, like we have seen last week with Melbourne, one slight mistake or one unfortunate event at the beginning of the race and your championship can be blown apart. So he just needs to keep it on track, and that is easier said than done. But we start off with qualifying as per usual. 18 minutes and Profitox in the Ferrari, the man who shined last week in Spain with a surprise pole position. Let's see if he can do it again, but he is going to start off with his first bank lap in the Ferrari, going flat out through turns 1 and 2, no challenge at all, and then towards the braking zone in towards the village section. Have to be mindful of that curve on the inside, and now on the exit 1 to get a best exit as possible, but he slides his way into the corner and then accelerating outwards onto the Wellington straight, DRS open, and then flat out all the way towards, that is turn 8, and turning in very early indeed, can grab the inside curve a little bit, then on to the right again. And this is a really long right-hander. You really have to get onto the throttle as early as possible, because it's flat out all the way to Copse Corner. Even Copse Corner is flat out, especially in qualifying conditions. Maybe not so much in the race with dirty air, but certainly is in qualifying. Slight correction mid-corner. She hits the inside curve now, going through the S's. Maggots and Beckett's the first couple of corners are flat out. Then a slight lift for the final part. Probably across the inside curve once again. DRS open for the final time down the hanger straight, and then we go in towards the final sector, the very fast Stowe corner, a very quick right-hander with curve on the inside, easy to run out right on the outside, but he keeps it in the white lines, and then this final chicane, which can be so tricky with the inside curves, but he is playing it safe on his first lap time, and the first lap time is gonna be a 25.710, and let's see who is gonna be able to beat that. Levi behind is just starting their lap. And then comes the Haas of Mighty Wombat, always early out on track, and his first lap time is a 26.0. But we're looking for the likes of Damaiko, who goes quickest, and 25.16 tenths clear of Profitox, always a contender for pole position, and tonight seems no different. We have to take a look at Melvin as well, another one of those drivers who can be extremely quick in qualifying. Let's see what his first lap on board is going to be, a 25.5. 4 tenths behind the Mike. Well, in the meantime, Napple and the Williams has gone second.
Yeah, impressive there from Napoli after a struggle fest of a season so far in PSGL F3. Milan Diossi is going towards the line, but unfortunately he has invalidated on the lap time. Decided to keep going, but maybe to put a reference because I do think you get like a delta on your next lap, even though you're validated. So he got a little bit of a reference point there for himself to see what he could do on his second run. As the finishman of Mukeli goes up into P6, the Wizard of the Grandada goes up in second place, and it's an RP1-2 so far. D'Amico, like I said, for the past few races, is still searching for that lucrative first win of the season. It is coming, I dare say. I think he started second last time out the Spanish Grand Prix. Just got pipped by Provotox, who set that blistering lap time, and there was only minimal gap between himself and second place, about 7,000ths of a second last time out at the Spanish Grand Prix. So fine margin is cutting close between every single driver. But around here, like a track like this, where it's 5.8 kilometers, it can be a bit difficult as well, especially hooking up every single corner, every single apex, carrying the speed all the way through, every single breaking point got to nail into absolute perfection. Like I said, Melvin goes up into P4. He's looking for a better race qualified. There is about 5 races left to go this season, or 6. So Melvin, what's going on? What the hell? What did I just see? I'm so confused. What was that? I have no idea. Was that Ryan? Okay, it was Ryan. I thought it was Melvin. They're both on the hanger straight or relative, but I can't remember which one's which. I'm very bad when it comes to Silverstone. Surprisingly, as a British person, this track confuses me the most when it comes to corners. I don't know why. I nail every single corner name when it comes to different tracks, but this one I can't do it for some reason. I just can't. Mate, I don't know why. It's been every time I come to the British GP, I always struggle to commentate it, despite being a Brit myself, and love this track. So what I just saw there was Ryan just hitting the wall on his in lap. He must have doubled out the brakes and just smashed into the wall there or something. I'm not quite sure what that was there from Ryan. He completes the lap with a 25.873. But I thought it was Melvin because I was on board with him, but it happened with Ryan then. So quite confusing there as he heads back in the pit lane. So the first laps are done, and D'Amico is on provisional pole position then, and he's still searching, like I said, for that first win of the season. It's coming for him, but he just needs to set himself up nicely to try and get that eventual race win, because it is definitely on the way very soon. He's currently P2 the championship. He's had 3 podiums in the last 3 races, has D'Amico. 2 P3s, 1 P2 and 1 P3 at the Australian Grand Prix. You know what? He finished inside the top 5 every single race this season, so he's been very consistent, very clean. But unfortunately, the strategy has cost him dearly in the last races. He got undercutted by Milan Diossi, got stuck in that DRS train, couldn't move forwards. He got undercutted twice by Melvin back at the Monaco Grand Prix. So it's definitely cost him dearly in the last couple of races, and lots of points lost, but he's only 4 points behind Milan Diossi. Milan Diossi, by the way, has taken the championship lead by 63 points. Behind him is D'Amico with 59. Third place is Melvin, 51. And with that horrible result back at the Spanish Grand Prix, has put him on the back foot a little bit too this season with that disappointing result. And you've got Polimachi's P4 with 50 points, but he's been promoted up to F1. Junker Angle's P5 in Mercedes with 37. Now, he's an interesting one because I feel like he's got some decent pace, but unfortunately, he just can't seem to connect the dots and piece the puzzle together. He just seems to drop away in the last stages of the race and can't seem to get himself in within that fight. So, unfortunately for Junker Angle, and he did the ultimate strategy last week, I think it was harsh to mediums, and unfortunately he got stuck in that DRS train once he caught up. He caught up by mega pace by the rate of knots, but unfortunately just got stuck there and couldn't move forwards. Now, on board with the Dutchman of Provotox in the Ferrari, who I think he picked up his first podium back at the Spanish Grand Prix. He was hunted down, I think, at the time, Milan Diossi, but unfortunately couldn't get him. And I think he was running higher wings in comparison towards Milan Diossi, because he defended from him on the final lap, despite having the DRS and slipstream. As we head down towards Brooklands, then 1/10 up in the first sector as he rides the curve there very nicely, coming towards now Luffield we go, keeping in the middle of the racetrack. You don't want to go too greedy on the entry towards Luffield there, but coming through Woodcote, there is cars in the way, and that was super close to making contact with the McLaren Williams driver, as he called me out there with the colours, but coming through Cops flat out as we now make our way towards Magnus and Beck as we go. On his last lap, it was a bit hesitant as well with the steering wheel, so hopefully on this lap he's more hooked up and more comfortable as we now head through Chapel we go with the DRS wide open. A 10th found in that middle sector, which could promote him up to P5 or P6. KDRDN and Levi are separated by exactly 100th of a second there. So super tight between those two as we make our way now towards the final three corners on this racetrack. It can be very difficult because the tyres are very hot at this stage in qualifying and this lap. But here he is towards the line. The Dutchman goes up into P2. So that was a mega lap time there, but still can't beat D'Amico. And D'Amico's coming through turn 1 and turn 2.
Yeah, great lap time from Profitox, indeed. 3 tenths away though from the Alpine, who has just started his flying lap like you said. So let's take a look at what he can produce. Can he go into the 24s on his second attempt as he comes on to the Wellington straight with the DRS open? He'll give it a battery as well. And we're heading towards the brakes, and he's already up by 7/100ths of a second. So it's a good start to his lap for sure. But now let's see if he's going to be able to pull that through. He's got a comfortable gap towards the cars behind already in this qualifying session. We always like to go just a little bit quicker and show that you are the quickest in qualifying, which is not the first time this season, but still yet in search of that first win. But maybe tonight could be the night. But now going towards Maggots and Beckett's flat out. And you need to get the best possible exit as you want to, because it's going to be flat out all the way towards Stowe. But he's found some more time in the middle sector as well, and he's on course to get into the 24.9s by only a few thousandths of a second. But it's a great lap so far from D'Amico, and now only the final chicane remaining where you can really make or break your lap. Let's see how he's going to handle that turn in. Very, very nice indeed. So that's Junkie Angle going to second place with a 25.2. Great lap for him as well. Here comes the Mike cross line, 24.929. And that is a brilliant lap time indeed from the Alpine. Going even quicker at the front as his teammate Grandetta spinning out of the final corner. Was, I think, on an improvement, but certainly will not be, as he has lost control of race Alpine. And spun him up. Milan DLC goes P3 then with a 25.2. That's a much better lap time for him. Let's see what Melbourne can do. He's already up by 2 tenths in the first sector on his lap time, and we know that he needs to improve to get himself near his championship rivals. There's more drivers out on track. That is Napple, I think, in the Williams coming around the final corner up by only 200ths, but he goes up to P5 for the good final sector. Found a tenth of a second. What about CA Lewin? Ferrari goes into P12. Then KDRDN up to P9, just ahead of his teammate Moikuli, who was unable to improve. But what about Melbourne, as he has found some more time, 3.5 tenths up in the middle sector. This could be on for a potential front row. Don't think he's going to be quite able to beat the Michael's lap time, but he should be able to get that second place locked in as he crosses the line, and he certainly does with a 25.080. Is 1.5 tenths away from the Michael, but also 1.5 tenths ahead of Junkie Angle in P3. So the Michael and Melbourne making out the front row at the moment, with Middle DLC in P4. Only just behind Junkie Angle, but a great lap must be said from him so far. In the meantime, Ryan, he's gone to P5, and I looked back at this incident that you called out a moment ago, and he had just had a little wiggle on the hanger straight with the DRS open, just slammed straight into the onto the wall on the left-hand side. It was a really strange moment, but yeah, very interesting indeed. But he's found some time on this lap. He's improved and finds himself inside the top 5, which is what McLaren needs in their championship fight as well. Every single driver was on track for a moment ago, but now everyone is going to go back into the pit lane to prepare themselves for the final runs in qualifying. D'Amico, currently quickest, the only one to go into the 24 with a 24.929. Is there anyone who can beat that lap time, or will it be another pole position for the Alpine to set him up nicely for a potential race win later on tonight?
Great attempts by Napoli as well, up into P6. We know that man has struggled for such a long time, especially last season too, because he was always outside the top 10, just like this season. And in P6 is a really good result. I think he qualified well at the last race as well in Austria, not Spain. He was up there inside the top 10. He had great, decent wet pace, but unfortunately just can't seem to be there when it matters in the race. So hopefully he sorts it out. He finished, I think, P13 back at the Spanish Grand Prix as both McLarens made their way in the pit lane. So calm before the storm. And so far it is D'Amico on pole position then with a 24.929 with Melvin in P2. Melvin needs a redemption drive after what happened in Spain, because it was just an odd race for him. I know in a championship fight, the intensity of the pressure is very, very high. Stakes are very high as well. You can't afford to make any mistakes whatsoever. And sometimes you do have that one bad race, and maybe Spain was one of them. But unfortunately, got caught up in that incident, and it wasn't his fault actually, because I didn't quite see what happened down at turn number one, and because I was too fixated and focused on the front of the field with that battle with Milan Diossi and D'Amico for first and second place, with Pavatox there as well, who took pole last time out in Spain. And it turns out like he was a totally innocent victim as well, unfortunately for him, because Slav went bowling in towards turn number one. Granted, it wasn't his fault. We watched the footage back, and his wheel disconnected. You could hear it disconnected too, as something was wrong with the brake pedal. So it wasn't his fault, but unfortunately, it's just a case of wrong place, wrong time for Melvin, and hopefully the Super Swede comes back stronger to try and make his way back up towards the championship. We know he could do it. It all depends, though, can he manage the pressure now? Will that race in Spain get to him, or is he focused now fully on the next races coming up? There is 5-6 races left to go. Like I said last season, you really can't afford to put a foot wrong either. And at some point in this championship, drivers will make mistakes, etc. Probably towards the latter end when the pressure's more higher. So we could see those mistakes creeping in. But it's all about being consistent, and consistency will win the championship. Think about last season. Wards did not need the championship at all. He was the Kick Sauber driver last season, and he basically won the championship at the very end of Brazil. Literally, post-race penalties kicked in. It was Stefano who won the championship, but unfortunately he got a penalty after the race, which enabled Ward to go up the order and take the championship. And it was the McLaren driver, no, it was the Haas driver, sorry, of Luke, who leading all the championship until the very last race of the season in Brazil when he picked up a drive-through penalty. And what a shame, because he definitely deserved it. He had 0 wins, but consistency was top-notch indeed, and unfortunately blew it in Brazil in the last race of the season with a drive-through penalty. It's those silly mistakes that can defy and cost you championship as well. I know we're talking about championship despite having about 6 races left to go, but still, every single race is important this season, and we'll see what happens then. As we're on board with Levi in the racing board, now I feel like he's one of those drivers who does have decent pace. I say it about every single driver this season, but he's an outsider, I dare say. Coming towards now turn 3, towards these slow speed corners, so really trying to open up these corners to get a good exit, back on the power immediately without the back of the car complaining or losing the rear end. As now the DRS is wide open on towards the Wellington straight. Now, for some reason, I do get those two straights confused, the Wellington and the Hangar. Look at that traffic jam. You can see them all creeping and slowing down in the last sector. I really hope that none of them get a 5-place grid penalty, because they're all so bunched up close together indeed. But on board with the racing ball as he flies through Woodcourt, simple flat-out corner, but Felipe Massa spun their back in 2008, I believe, and he tried to get the power, but unfortunately lost the car. Sebastian Vettel did the same thing too back in 2021 when he lifted up the rear tyres with Fernando Alonso side by side in towards Brooklands and spun the car there too. Now coming towards Woodcourt, this Chapel, sorry, and in Chapel we do see a few mistakes linger because you carry so much speed but understeered. You can suffer with massive understeer coming towards Chapel. You've got to be very careful and mindful of the curve on the outside because it can force you off the track as well. So you've got to be very careful and wary when it comes to the race. Qualifying has ended, and every single driver is out there on their flying lap. Levi is the first driver to cross the line to go up into P8. He's inside the top 10, and let's see if that remains to be seen, as the Aston Martin driver of Animiku in P17 is down there in last place, 6/10 up in the middle sector. He's another handy driver indeed, but let's see what he does now as he rolls his way towards the final 3 corners he goes, and let's see if he can keep it nice and hooked up, nice and steady as he puts the power down towards the line he goes up into PA, so big improvement, and currently a few hundreds quicker. Now the Kick Saubers is coming towards the line. It is Mukalai in P12, stays P12, so it's a bad lap time. He improved only just. A McLaren driver is making their way towards the line. It's Ryan. Ryan goes up into P3, joins his teammate there on the top end of the field. Junkie Angle has set the exact same lap time as Ryan as well. Super fine margins, but I think Milan Diossi goes up into P3 now with a 25.087 as D'Amico extends the bar once again with a 24.8. He's on provisional pole position, but here comes KDRDN as he makes his way towards the line. He goes up into P6 inside the top 10 or inside the top 6, which is a very good qualifying. Pavatox, our last week's pole sitter, is making his way now towards the final corner. Can he take pole again? The answer is no. He stays in P6. Where's the wizard? He's down to P11. He's pitted. Unfortunately, Grandada is in the pit lane and can't improve on his lap time. And D'Amico is on pole position, the only driver inside the 24s, while the rest of them are in the 25s. But what a flying lap. What a blistering qualifying from D'Amico. And guess what, Milan? The top 3 are the top 3 of the championship, excluding Polimachi.
Indeed, they are the Michael Paul Melbourne in second and Milan Diosi in P3. Melbourne visibly frustrated on his in-lap as he unfortunately invalidated on his final run. Not sure how much he was improving by, but he couldn't finish that lap. And he has to settle for second place. But the Michael in the league of his own with an absolutely sensational lap and 24.8 and securing himself another pole position and putting himself nicely on the grid for a potential race win. Who knows? But he's got great company at the front though. Melbourne and Milan Diosi, two of his championship rivals, starting alongside him in second and third. And the other McLaren of Ryan is there as well in P4. Like you said, the exact same lap time as Junkie Angle in P5. And Profitox just 1,000th of a second away in P6. So incredibly close inside the top 5. You just take away the Maiko with his 2.5 tenth advantage at the front. But a brilliant pole position for him. And I'm looking forward to see what he can do in the race once again. Just needs to get that strategy right. And then he might have a real shot of winning a race this season. His first one of the season here at Silverstone. But Silverstone always can be tricky. It's not easy to win, but it's raining. In fact, it is raining. I'm not sure for how long it will be raining, but at least at the beginning of the race, we will start on intermediate. So that has changed everything around strategically wise. We don't know if it's going to be drying up later on in the race, but this is going to spice things up, certainly. And I wonder if some of these drivers may have picked a wet setup at the beginning of qualifying, knowing that it's going to be raining in the race, but a wet start to a race surely always is going to be one of the most entertaining starts of race, isn't it?
It is indeed. Now, I just read an interesting comment. Sorry to ignore that comment there, but it is good to make an interesting spectacle for this race. Now, it changes everything, the trajectory, and I think some drivers may benefit from this. The people who are especially good in the wet and good are adapted as well. So let's see which drivers thrive off these conditions. But I'm looking at the comment I just read interestingly as well. Let me just find that comment real quick, because he said something about being a full-time driver, Edwin and Polymachi. So it says, imagine being full-time drivers in McLaren at the start of the season. Me and Polly are both out, says Evan. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. Do you understand what it means?
It probably means that both full-time drivers that were full-time at the beginning of the season, Polymachi and Edwin, are both not in the McLaren team anymore.
Oh,
so they've
Evan.
been replaced by, yeah.
Oh, I was so confused. I thought it was Melvin. So I get confused between those two. But yeah, that makes sense now. My apologies there, Evan. I don't know where you went. It's a shame to see you go, because you were a contender and you did have good results. I think you finished P2 behind Polymachi at one point, I think, in the early part of the season. But as we get ready to go racing, the grid is set then, but everything has changed because the rain is falling and this race has instantly become a test of nerve, judgment and control. Starting from pole position is Demaiko, who once again showed undeniable pace in qualifying. But the season of the story so far has been what happens after as well in the race. Strategy calls and race day decisions have been so far denied him that first lucrative win, and it's those conditions the margin error is even slimmer. The margin for error is even slimmer, and Evan says he broke his foot. Unlucky, mate. Hopefully you unlucky, but get well soon, mate. And I hope to see you back racing. I'm not quite sure what happened to you, but maybe you played football or something, and you broke your foot. So I hope you recover very quickly. But alongside in the front row, and I asked to join back, but they haven't answered. Oh. So is your foot recovered now? Can you still race? But alongside on the front row is Melvin, a perfect place to apply pressure from the opening meters, while Milan Diossi lines up third. And a driver renowned for adapting quickly when grip disappears. Behind them, Ryan and Juggy Angle know that in the wet, bravery towards turn one could pay off or end a race before it even truly begins. And we know what happens in the rain as well. It really spices and galvanizes as well, especially this year and last year as well. 2024 British GP and the 2025 British GP, both won by Brits, with Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton as well. I dare say Lando Norris' win was a bit controversial with that safety car coming out, because I think Oscar Piastri has mixed opinions about that with the safety car, but unfortunately he picked up that 10-second penalty and lost himself the win after leading as well, after such substantial pace from the Australian driver who could have won at Lando Norris's home Grand Prix. Then there's Nico Hulkenberg coming from P19 to P3, and that put a smile on everybody's face, because that man has been in F1 for 15 years. His last time he stood on the podium was back in 2009 when he was the GP2 champion. And what a sensational drive from Nico Hulkenberg that day too. And once he got up to podium on P3, I think most of us were begging Hamilton not to get towards him, because it was likely. But yeah, even though that's most Brits want to see Hamilton on the podium, Hulkenberg managed to fend off the Brits in the Ferrari. What a shame as well, because it could have been Hamilton's first podium of the season, if you think about it. Carlos Sainz switched to Williams, and he's got 2 podiums this season, well, last season, and now Lewis Hamilton got 0. Evan says, what's your predictions? Well, it's a good one, actually. I'm going to go with Melvin. I'm going to say Melvin this time. My last prediction was D'Amico, but unfortunately, he let me down again. So I'm going to go with Melvin. What's your prediction, Milan?
I have a feeling that the Michael can produce something special tonight, but I'm definitely not counting out the McLaren.
Definitely not as well. Welcome to Ryan, by the way. He's also in the McLaren camp, so let's see how he plays an effect towards the championship. So it's going to be an interesting one indeed. We're just waiting for the lights to go out here in Silverstone, and we can get racing in these wet conditions. Of course, every single time we come to the British GP, it always produces a spectacular show here as well. And the last 2 winners, like I said, were Brits. Verstappen won in 23, Sainz won in 2022, his first pole position and his first race win as well for Ferrari. What an excellent drive, because he created his own strategy when he told the Ferrari boys to stop, what was the word? Stop inventing, and he won the Grand Prix due to his own decisions as well. After unfortunately Leclerc had a front wing damage and was on the hardcore part tyres, and there was a Hamilton moment when he went through. Safety cars after lap 1. Well, to be honest with you, I don't expect a safety car around here in Silverstone anymore, because the runoff areas are quite long as well. And I know I've seen plenty of safety cars here in Silverstone in the past, but I think mistakes will be kept to a minimum unless something dramatic happens here with a massive crash. We've seen safety cars on lap 1 with Zhou Guanyu flipping over and toppling over the barrier as well with that crash with Pierre Gasly and George Russell as well. Massive crash back in 2014 when we saw Kimi Räikkönen go off the road, rejoin, massive crashed, and also I think it came to him as well, Marcus Ericsson or Kamui Kobayashi. So we see some dramatic stuff indeed here at the British GP. We've seen a few punches as well, but I don't think that'll happen tonight as well because of the intermediate conditions. So punches can occur here in Silverstone, and we've seen plenty of those as well, especially in the last couple of years. 2013, when we had a lot of tyre blowouts as well. Perez was the first one in practice 3. I remember that because I was there. I saw Perez in Silverstone get a puncher back in the McLaren days, and afterwards as well in the race, I think the likes of Lewis Hamilton, Felipe Massa, Jean-Eric Vergne, Sergio Perez again, who got a puncher, and was there one more driver? I can't remember, but I was very upset on that day because my favourite driver, Sebastian Vettel, had an alternator failure, and Nico Rosberg went on to win that Grand Prix ahead of Mark Webber, and I think it was Fernando Alonso indeed. And also back in 2017 when both Ferraris had tyre blowouts as well. And not to forget, never mind then, as the lights about to go away then for the British GP. This is going to be a tentative start as the drivers crawl off the line. It's D'Amico who still leads this race, but he's got Melvin alongside him. Melvin goes through. He takes the lead, but not yet, because here comes D'Amico back around the outside to have the inside line as we head down towards turn 3. Both drivers continue the fight towards the break, so we go. D'Amico out on the outside line, but just barely on the road there, as Milan Diossi is trying to get involved as well. Tries to go around the outside. His teammate Ryan gets pitched on the curb now, under pressure from the Racing Bull as we go 3 abreast. Out of turn 5 we go towards entry. The Ferrari's off the road. The Racing Bull's in the middle. As we see now, the McLaren go through. As here comes Milan down the inside towards Brooklands. The McLaren goes a bit deeper towards the braking zone, allowing Milan to go alongside him. Now tries to go all the way on the outside, but he can't do so. Milan's looking for a switchback, but no. Melvin closes the door. Melvin stays in P2. But what a battle between first and second place. You can really trust Silverstone with swapping lines every time, coming through turn 1 all the way down towards entry in turn 5. It is D'Amico who leads this race ahead of Melvin. Milan Diossi has a few drivers in the background just go off the track there as well for good measure. But luckily, I think all 17 drivers are safely through, as Justin is at the back of the field in 17th place there. What a shame for Justin as well, because he's a really quick driver. But here in Silverstone, he seems to be struggling. I believe it was a wet race last season as well here in Silverstone. I think it was the finishman who won. I think it was Keke who won this race last year for Williams as well. We do have a finishman here, which is Mulkalai, who's done a P13, so he's lost a few places. But so far, so good for the RP driver in first place, who built up a gap on 1 second already.
Yeah, great start there from D'Amico. It was an incredible launch from Melvin to get alongside, but the great defense from D'Amico held him back. And now he leads by 1 second going on to the second lap. I mean, he already had a chance of getting past as well, but it was his teammate with an absolute brilliant start as well. Levi from P10 on the grid has transferred that into P5 after the opening lap and already putting the pressure on the McLaren of Ryan ahead of him in P4. So great start from both of the V-Carbs, with Profitox just behind in P6, as that is Justin into the pit and must have had some front wing damage. Not sure what happened between him and Schlav, but they both fell back immensely after the first couple of corners. But it's all clean at the front, and Milan Diossi is starting to fall behind already a little bit to Melvin, and the gaps are starting to form inside the top 3. In fact, it's Levi who's going up the inside there of Ryan. That is an optimistic move, putting his nose on the inside of the McLaren, but the McLaren will have the better traction, is able to stay in front of the RB. But does he dare to go for the move, going in towards Copse Corner? He's going to go to the inside, the RB, and the McLaren side by side, and then it's Ryan going all the way around the outside, but almost goes off track, and Levi's going to go through on the inside, but still, Ryan trying to keep his nose on the long side, but it's an incredible move there from Levi. How about that P4? From 10th on the grid, that second Red Bull is absolutely on fire so far here at the British Grand Prix. Now he needs to defend against the McLaren, who will have to slipstream, but 6 positions gained after 2 laps, and now Scott Ryan once again for company, but he's a little bit too far back to go for any move. But a beautiful move to see him up at the P4, but he is now 1.5 seconds away from Milan Diossi, as the top 3 are all separated by over 1 second, and Demaiko is starting to pull away from Melbourne slightly as well with a 1.4 second lead, setting the fastest lap of the race with a 38.230, but the top 4 have all got a couple of gaps between them. But after Levi, it's an immense strain all the way back towards Kingsman in P15, all within 1 second. Of course, DRS not available in these conditions, as Ryan is still very close to the back of Levi in the RB and starting to try and go for the counter attack, but you need to be so close to the back in order to make a move, especially in the rain, so it can be quite tricky. But Levi now up at the P4 at the front. It is the Mike who is maintained in the leader race with now 1.4 seconds ahead of Melvin. An ideal start for the Alpine driver. Let's see where it's going to go from here.
Exactly what he needs, isn't it? To have a clean start off the line, don't get yourself any contact. Although a lot of risk was taken, but like you said, just a lot of risk as well on the first lap of the Grand Prix, because the first lap you can always make or break ground, and he's certainly done that as well. Had to defend against Melvin, and it was such a great epic battle between the top 2 as well. Wheel to wheel proper stuff between those guys, turn 1 all the way down towards turn 4, and Ryan got a bit of pinched on the inside too. He tried to make it 3 abreast for himself, Demaiko and Melvin, but unfortunately cost himself dearly, got wrong footed by that, and unfortunately shuffled into P5, and now is behind the racing ball of Levi as well. Levi doing a really good job in P4, DNF back at the Spanish Grand Prix, but he's now in P4 behind his teammate Milan Diossi, who is a championship contender, in fact the championship leader in P3. Now Ryan's under pressure from the Ferrari Profitox, right behind with the Dutchman then on course after the McLaren driver, who made a mistake out of Stowe, as Demaiko once again sets the fast lap of the Grand Prix. He's really comfortable so far, as Ryan almost lost the car at the exit of the final corner there and almost chucked it in the wall. Slav picks up a 3-second penalty in this race, but Ryan was so close to bidding the car out of the final corner, and the Ferrari there giving all the encouragement he needs to try and get himself above Ryan for 5th place there. So Ryan unfortunately struggling there after a great qualifying, but unfortunately cannot play rear gunner towards his teammate now, as Melvin is 2 seconds behind Demaiko in 1st place then. So Demaiko looking very comfortable so far in this race. All he needs to do, well, easy said than done of course, but keep it nice and clean, keep extending the bar. He knows that it's very difficult to overtake around here in Silverstone without the DRS and dirty air being effective around here too. It is super difficult to follow closely and attack the drivers ahead. But Ryan's under massive pressure from Pelotons right behind him, and KDRDN in P7. Now, one of the kick salvage drivers in Spain got disadvantaged heavily because I think he hit the wall, didn't he, at turn 9? Can't remember which one it was. Was it Mukali or KDRDN? I'm not quite sure, but it broke up the DRS train, and it affected the result massively as well at the Spanish Grand Prix, as they were both doing a decent job, but unfortunately one of them made a mistake and it cost him the other one because it broke the DRS. But Ryan's under massive pressure here from the Ferrari drive behind, who's followed by KDRDN and Junkie Angle Pierre, and Napol doing a really good job so far in P9. He's got Alimiku right behind him as well, chasing him after him in Aston Martin. And Napol, well, he needs these points because he only scored 1 point this season, and that was back, let me have a look, that was back at the Monaco Grand Prix. His one and only points there for the season when he went for that long stint on those tyres. coming down the P9 so far, doing a good job, but he's got the Aston Martin right behind him and the Wizard of the Grandadder. And the Grandadder, unfortunately, who could not improve in his last lap. And here comes the Aston Martin then. Does he fancy a move up the inside towards turn 3? The gap's not quite there for him, unless he could try and go up the inside towards turn 4. He can't do so, maybe switching lines and try to get a better rest than the Williams driver. Unfortunately, Slav has retired here at the British GP, so a dismal race back in Spain when he disconnected, and now a dismal race here at the British GP, getting caught up in an instant when he has changed his front wing, and that is another DNF. That's 2 DNFs in a row for the Red Bull driver. He had 2 DNFs back in Austria and in Monaco, and once again it's a DNF added towards his tally. It is a stalemate race so far. We don't expect much action, especially in the wet conditions, because drivers are pretty much spread out as well. No DRS around here, of course, in these wet conditions, so we typically see this type of race in the rain, and that's what you're going to see as well for the remainder of this race.
Impressive pace from the Maiko, and the gap is now 3 seconds between himself and Melvin in second place. We've still got Milan DLC right behind him at around 1.3 seconds, and Levi following closely as well. But it's the Maiko who's really making the difference in these early stages of this race, really building the gap towards his competitors behind, whilst the rest of them are fighting it out in this DRS. And Profitog still behind the McLaren of Ryan, unable to get close enough to really have a go at the McLaren driver up ahead, who we saw make that mistake in this corner a couple of laps ago, but he has recovered from in the gap's 2 seconds towards Levi, who started to close in on his teammate, but I have a feeling they will not be fighting as much, especially when Milan DLC is our championship leader and he cannot really afford to lose any points at any stage in this championship as they're sliding their way in towards turn 3. Really tricky on corner entry, with the rear end wanting to step out there, as Profitog's around 1 second now to the McLaren, and having to use quite a bit of battery as well to stay close to the McLaren up ahead, and almost just the entire battery now down the Wellington straight. But at the front end, it's the Maiko who maintains a strong gap over Melvin and keeps extending by a few tenths every single lap, and is doing what he needs to do to bring home that first victory of the season. We still got 20 laps to go after this one though, it's a long way, and anything can happen with safety cars or things like that, as Justin speeds into the pit lane and becomes our second retirement. Unfortunately, after an incident on the opening lap, the Mercedes driver is out of the British Grand Prix. I think he got involved with Slavas. The two of them were very far behind after the first couple of corners, but it's a second retirement in a row for the Mercedes. Unfortunately, no points again, as we move down to 15 drivers then, with Mighty Wombat closing the field in P15. In the Haas, as the Maiko once again finding a 10th here and there, 3.1 seconds. Milan DLC has made a mistake maybe on this lap, as the gap's now 2 seconds almost towards Melvin, and it was Levi who was within 1 second for a brief moment there. So Milan DLC probably made a mistake somewhere throughout this lap, as he is dropping behind a little bit to the likes of Melvin up ahead, as Ryan is struggling as well, and Profitex is getting closer now, 4 tenths of a second away from the McLaren driver, but you need to be a little bit closer in order to have an opportunity to make that move, as he clobbers across the inside curve. That is the Mercedes on the right hand side, retiring in the AI mode, and the Grandada and Adameco fighting it out, and the Aston Martin is off track in turn 3, and I wonder if they made contact and if he got pushed wide by the Alpine, but he has just lost 2 positions down to P12. Moikeli has gone through in the Kick Sauber, and he's now under pressure as well from C8 Lou in the Ferrari, but they are just not quite close enough to profit from that. But I'm not sure what happened there to Adameco in the Aston Martin. Whilst the Grandad is now up to P10 and chasing after Napple in the Williams, who is really struggling as well at this stage. The gap's now 2 seconds towards Junkie Angle, who is in this train all the way up to Milan DLC. It's starting to form a little bit of train behind him, I'll say that. Ryan is still 2.3 seconds behind, but Milan DLC is really losing time compared to Melvin. The gap's now 3 seconds, and I think it was around 2 seconds when we started this lap, so he's just lost another second to the McLaren driver. And Levi, it definitely seems like the quicker RB at this stage of the race. The gap's now 6 tenths towards his teammate, and I do wonder if they are going to work together and if Levi is going to be able to overtake his teammate. But he also knows that he needs to help him in this championship fight, whilst the fights continue on further down the field in the back end of the top 10. Still very close to each other as we go on to lap 8 of 26. The gap between Demaiko and Melvin has stabilized a little bit, around 3 seconds, as Kingsman into the pit lane after 6 laps, but unfortunately picks up a 10-second time penalty for speeding, as that is quite an early pit stop for the Williams driver, as that might imply that he's going to go for a 2-stop, because if you can only do 7 laps on these intermediates, then definitely has to make at least 2 more stops in this race, including this one, as he goes on to a brand new set of intermediates. But it will put him in clean air, which could help him on for an undercut, but just getting that 10-second time penalty really ruined that strategy, and he will be falling behind further down the field, as looks like Melvin might have made a mistake there, or if it was just Demaiko with a brilliant first sector. The gap's now 3.5 seconds, and he is starting to gain some time again on his closest rival in second place, and he is really putting in a strong performance so far. Demaiko is on lap 8, but still a long way to go, but the gap now at 3.7 seconds, and he's starting to build more of a gap towards the McLaren, and trying desperately to get this first win towards him, as Levi has dropped a little bit behind his teammate once again, left a little bit of the gap now, but I do wonder if we are going to see some early pit stops in this race, especially seeing the Williams of Kingsman early on in the pit and at the end of lap 7.
Look at the quarter difference there between Ryan and Provotox. You could really see that Provotox gained, especially in Magnus and Becker's chopper as well. So got more downforce slapped on the Ferrari in comparison towards McLaren. And like you said, the racing ball is going for it. That is Levi. Can he slow the car down to 60 kph? That's about 38 miles per hour, I think it is, as he's now in the pit lane. And it's super easy to inherit a 10-second penalty for speed in the pit lane. It's a race coster indeed. If you pick up a penalty for speed in the pit lane, your race is essentially over, unfortunately. As let's see then, it's on the new set of intermediate compound tyres. I think it'll stay like this for the whole race, just into conditions then. So it's all about survival out there in this race. And let's see if Levi does get the undercut on his team. And Milan Diossi will be desperate, because he knows that every single point in the championship matters. But I'm not quite sure how close those two are in terms of working together and strategy. But of course, it could be racing for themselves, could be racing for pride. But the racing bull of Levi, I dare say, is much quicker in comparison towards Milan Diossi. And that's why he's gone for the undercut, because overtaking is notoriously difficult, especially in the rain. You can see a huge train behind Ryan so far. Ryan has done such an immense job to hold the guys right behind him, as Provotox has put on so much immense pressure as well. As we make our way now in towards Cost we go. We saw that on the last lap, Ryan really struggled to wrestle the car through Magnus and Beckett's. It wasn't compliant whatsoever, and we'll see if that's the same thing again. We'll see if that more people will pit towards the end of this lap as well to try and cover the undercut from the guys behind. Levi's rejoining P13. Napoli pitted 2 on the same lap. He's rejoining P14 ahead of his Williams teammate Kingsman, who's down in P15 then. As the drivers once again in the background, the Aston Martin going for a little bit of an excursion there at the exit of, I think that is Chapel, as Demaiko is pitting then to make sure he doesn't get undercut by anybody, as the Ferrari pits. Oh, sorry about that, my voice is going. The Ferrari and the Mercedes 2 pits as well, as the Mercedes just slows down within this box. Let's see where Levi rejoins. Well, he won't rejoin. He'll stay where he is, because obviously Milan Diossi hasn't pitted just yet. So Milan Diossi is still out there, and I dare say he'll definitely get undercutted, because the power of the undercut is mighty powerful around here in Silverstone. So all these drivers then move at one place, and we'll see if the undercut is effective or not. And we'll see if the offset is much better as well, because it's definitely a one-stop strategy. I don't think any driver is attempting to do a two-stop strategy, because that is just too slow. The pit lane loss is significantly huge around here. You definitely don't want to be doing a two-stop strategy around here if you can help it. I know the tyre wear isn't that great around here, but it shouldn't be too detrimental to be on a two-stop strategy. But and it was about 2.5 seconds. That was 1.8 seconds. So maybe he's found some ground, maybe he's found some pace. Maybe Melvin is struggling just a tad there on his intermediate compound of tyres, and he's definitely gaining by a rate, and also as well, because the gap keeps going down all the time. The gap is 1.6 seconds between himself and Milan Diossi, Melvin, in P1. So it looks like Melvin is starting to struggle on his intermediate compound tyres. Could a pit stop be imminent for the McLaren driver, who is looking for redemption after what happened at the Spanish Grand Prix? Scored only a few points, or scored barely any points, in fact, in Spain after a dismal race. But Milan Diossi is right behind him too, so it looks like Melvin is clearly struggling on those intermediates. And Milan Diossi is in...
Puncture.
Punctured for who? Punctured for who?
Moikuli has got a puncture with the kick Sauber spun around in Stowe corner, so tyre is definitely very high at this stage, as the kick Sauber has got a rear left puncture and needs to pull into the pit lane quite soon.
Well, that could 10 laps on those inters, and they're going to do another 10 laps. And that's a puncher already in this race. I think Tyler... Oh, slow it down, slow it down, slow it down. He's done an Ollie Berman there this year with Silverstone. His teammate KDRDN is right behind Ryan. That's 10 laps on these inters, Milan. So we could see a few more punches. And I think that KDRDN has gone for a little bit of excursion, and maybe switched the grass on the inside because there's a bit of grass on the inside of his tyres there. But here he is, right behind the McLaren as he squirms away at the exit of Aintree on towards Luffield. But KDRDA gets a good exit out of Luffield in towards Woodcourt, side by side in P3 for the time being, but he's definitely got more pace in towards Ryan. Ryan's doing a really good job though, holding these guys up, allowing Melvin to get a bigger gap to ensure his safety as well for the rest of the race. But I'm pretty sure now that this is the time to pit, because we saw Morkalai pick up that puncher very early in this race. That's 10 laps on his Isabel compound tyre. Oh, Melvin, no! Oh, Melvin! Oh, my goodness me. He has picked himself up a 10-second penalty, and he'll be kicking himself with that one, I'm sure of it. And that's going to be huge in the championship as well. We saw what happened last season in Brazil, in the final race of the season, when somebody got a 10-second penalty. That was Luke, and it cost him the championship dearly as well. He led the whole championship, but unfortunately lost it in the final race with that 10-second penalty. Could the same thing happen here in Silverstone? Could he look back and think, wow, all those points lost? But bearing in mind, though, he did have a huge gap behind, so P3 could summon the cars. He just hoped that a safety car doesn't appear on this track, otherwise that could be game over for him. Where does he rejoin? You know what? Milan Diossi did not get the undercut. He stays in P6. So despite having one lap extra on those intermediate compound tyres, Milan Diossi did perform the undercut and stays behind. The gap is 1.1, so Melvin rejoins in P5. But Provotox is not too far behind. Junker Angle's not too far behind either, neither is Naples. So it looks like Melvin could be in huge trouble towards the end of this race if you don't start building up a gap right now.
This is going to get very interesting, especially at the end of this race, because all these drivers are trying to go for the one stop, but the tire wear is just that high. And it's Ryan and the Grand that are still staying out on these old intermediates, and Demaiko wants to get by as soon as possible, so his teammate doesn't make his life too difficult as they're on the left-hand side, but he doesn't let Demaiko through, and he stays behind the Grandada for the time being. But they've all pitted way before the halfway point of this race, and if they're going for the one stop, then they're going to have major trouble at the end of this race, so they have to do some major tire saving in this second stint. Demaiko finally gets ahead of his teammate, the Grandada, and now we'll be looking to get past Ryan as soon as possible as well. I hope that the McLaren pulls to the right hand side into the pit lane, and he certainly does, the McLaren. Then Ryan and Grandada both making their pit stop at the end of lap 12. The last two drivers to make their scheduled first pit stop, or their only pit stop, we'll find out, as they're quite close to the halfway point of this race. But that allows Demaiko to retake the lead of this race once again. Finds himself at the front of the field, with Levi now in a second place position. And let's see what the gap is compared to Demaiko. It's around 5 seconds. Then Melvin in a virtual P3, well, now an actual P3, with Milan Diossi in P4. But we know Melvin, of course, has that 10-second time penalty. But he also has a 3-lap tire advantage to Levi and Demaiko, who I have a feeling that they're going to have to make another pit stop at some point in this race, because they're just not going to be able to stretch these tires all the way towards the end. So I think we might see a mix of one stop and two stop strategies, so that is going to be very interesting in the last few laps, and maybe we'll see a few more punctures later on, but that's something we'll find out in around 13 laps time. We're at the halfway point of this race now, lap 13 of 26. Demaiko still doing an incredible job at this stage, and he leads by over 5 seconds ahead of Levi, and Melvin is around 7 seconds behind him in P3, and with that 10-second time penalty, for sure he will not be a threat towards Demaiko, even if he does have to make a second stop. And then Milan Diossi is starting to fall behind a little bit now compared to Melvin, and Milan Diossi is really struggling in this race. He doesn't have quite have the pace that he has in the dry in the past couple of races, and he's leaving some time up to his championship rivals. But as long as he finishes in a strong position, he could still finish on the podium, which would still be a good result for him in the championship fight, with Profitox now 2.5 seconds behind him in B5. Definitely a few gaps have started to form now after this pit stop. Kingsman, with that very early pit stop, has moved up to P8. He put it 5 laps ago, but he also has that 10-second time. But it is Melvin now sitting the fastest lap of the race in hot pursuit of Levi up ahead. The gap's now under 1 second, and he knows he needs to gain as much time as possible in this stint, as he probably also knows that the two cars ahead of him do probably have to make at least another pit stop in this race. Was the fight continues on behind Kingsman, having a bit of a train behind him. Napol now in 7th place. He also made quite an early pit stop, but he is in a pretty good position, given that his teammate is forming an entire train behind him of Aramco P9, then KDRDN in the Kick Sauber in 10th place, followed by C8 Lou in 11th, and Mighty Woman and Ryan in the McLaren down in P13 with the Grandad and P14. These two, they made their pit stop 1 lap ago. They were the last ones to make their pit stop. Look how much they have fallen behind. They are a full 3 seconds behind the rest of the field, but they maybe have got the security that they will be able to make it to the end of the race, as Ryan goes quite wide there, turning into the left-hander, but maybe they will gain a few more positions at the end of the race, as D'Amico keeping his gap consistent towards Levi, but it's Melvin who is starting to put the pressure on the RB. But getting close is one thing, getting overtaking someone is another thing, especially in these conditions. Very, very difficult indeed, and we know that Levi's pace is not bad at all, as he has shown so far in this race, especially in the first stint, looking very strong indeed. So it's not going to be easy for Melvin to attempt an overtake on the RB, but he is starting to get closer and closer, and is now well within 1 second away from the RB. And RB sandwich at the moment, but Milan DLC not really in threat at the moment for Melvin, as he's now almost 3 seconds behind as we go on to lap 15. But it's D'Amico still at the front of the field by almost 6 seconds now ahead of Levi, but I do think that he is going to have to make one more stop.
Potentially, but with that big of a gap for D'Amico and Levi, I think D'Amico just can cruise a little bit, just do a bit of time management at this stage of the Grand Prix. Don't take too much of those tires. We're seeing that threats to punches are around, and it could occur to him, but hopefully it doesn't. We can see a massive train right behind Williams and Napol. Not Napol, it was Kingsman, sorry. But Napol, shout out to him in P7. He's doing a solid job so far. All credit to him. He struggled massively this season, finished outside the top 10, only scored points once this season back in Monaco in 10th place. And also, he was here last season in Sauber, and his teammate was a championship contender, whilst he was struggling to score points inside the top 10, and now he's in 7th place. So huge shout out to him. I know we like to see underdogs do really well. People who struggle, we like to see them do really well. Ali Mikko is right behind Kingsman in the other Williams, who pitted quite earlier on and got himself a penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Melvin's right behind Levi as well, so let's go on board with him to see what he's doing. Right behind the racing ball, gets a good exit, uses the battery, and simply walks past him for P2. I bet he's relieved now, because the more he got stuck behind him, the more chance that Milan Diossi will be closing up. I don't think Milan Diossi really cares, knowing that Melvin has got a 10-second penalty. A double racing bull podium could be on the cards tonight, and that would be a mega result for Levi. He deserves it, especially with his blistering pace so far. But he was one of the ones to pit early in this race. Could it bite it back later in the Grand Prix? Could the likes of Provotok, Shuki Angle get involved later on with the tyre drop off? Could be quite significant around here too. And Melvin too, when his tyres dropped off, he fell back quite significantly as well in towards the clutches of Milan Diossi in P4. However, once again in this race, Milan Diossi has caught up or closing in on his teammate Levi and Melvin, but just hoping that the two racing bulls don't tangle as well in this race, because both of them, one of them's a championship fight and the other one is going for his first podium of the season, and it'd be sensational if both of them could get a podium too, especially Levi, who struggled as well, massively struggled as well this season. Hasn't been anywhere near close as Milan has towards the front of the field. But I wonder how both racing bulls play out now, because it seems like Milan Diossi has got the advantage in terms of tyre wear and having an offset and having that durability towards him as well, have more flexibility, as McLaren would say. I don't know why I said that, but the gap is 1.3 seconds now between himself and his teammate. So he's great gaining at a rate of knots as well on his teammate, and I wonder what will happen too. Will Levi, I don't think he'll pull aside, surely not, but every single race matters, and D'Amico is in first place, and I know it's early stages in the championship, but every single race matters. Maybe they could just be thinking about one race at a time until the last stage, where it really matters as well in the last couple of rounds, where Levi might have to pull aside for Milan Diossi for him to go and chase after the championship. But D'Amico, it's all in his hands tonight. I don't think, well, hopefully not commentators' curse don't exist, but he's pitting. Levi is pitting then, so it could be leaning towards a two-stop strategy. I did say that the two-stop is slow with a massive pit loss, but it seems that tyre wear is higher than expected, as some drivers unfortunately having to go towards a two-stop strategy, and we'll see if that's the case then for Milan Levi in P6 then. He goes on to a brand new set of inters. That negates the issue for Milan Diossi, because Milan Diossi was catching his teammate and was about to get stuck behind him. But now he can have free air, although Melvin is in front of him. Into the pits comes Kickspin, but his tyres are 9 lap old, so I expect him to be in the pit lane at the end of this lap. So let's see then if it's a 1-stop versus 2-stop, and who will gain and who will be disadvantaged in this race. It's really turned out to be a super race in terms of strategy. Not many battles, but it's all about time management and strategies. Who will play it safe, who will be in the right strategy, and who has done what is right.
Must take quite an early pit stop there from Levi, as he has to do 10 more laps on the start. He only did 7 on the previous stint, so he might have to do some tire saving at the end of this stint, at the end of the race. As Kingsman also making his pit stop, his last pit stop. He's gone to 7 lap old intermediates. Not sure why that has happened. That is definitely a wrong tire. You don't want to be on those used tires, because people get a puncture in a few laps time. So does he not have any new intermediates, I wonder? But at the moment he seems to be in a bit of a trouble, because that or maybe it's a visual glitch, but definitely has to pit again if that is the case, as the Maiko is continuing on for the time being. His gap's now 6.7 seconds ahead of Melvin. I have a feeling that Melvin is not really pushing as much, because he wants to go to the end. He wants to make the end of the race. Milan DLC with a 10-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. That's a second drive for Melvin and Milan, both picking up 10-second time penalty. Our championship leader, and Nepal now for good measure as well. But oh my goodness me, Milan DLC now with a crucial defining moment in this championship fight. That was the last thing he needed, especially when one of his rivals having a penalty as well. And this is a golden opportunity for the Maiko. He could not only snatch away his first win of the season, but he also could be on for a great hit in the championship fight as well, especially because Melvin and Milan DLC might score less points than they would have hoped for, and might drop behind a few positions as he comes out behind his teammate Levi, who I'm sure will be finishing ahead of Milan DLC. But oh my man, that is unbelievable scenes here at Silverstone tonight. Both Melvin and Milan picking up 10-second time penalties in the pit. And now I know the Maiko probably is going to have to make another pit stop, but please, for the love of God, keep it within the speed limit, or else we're going to have all 3 of our championship protagonists picking up a 10-second time penalty in the same race. I guess we'll see when the Maiko makes his pit stop. I guess he has to. He's got 8 laps on these tires. He will have to do 16 if he wants to make it to the end. And I don't think that is quite possible with the tire when I don't think he is really conserving the tires at the moment, because Melvin now the gap 7.5 seconds. There he is. The Maiko into the pit lane now. Just play it safe, and then the victory might be yours. And he certainly does so, slowing down quite nicely all the way down to around 40 kph, I think. But our race leader Maiko into the pit lane for what will be his final pit stop, and he will lose the lead once again towards Melvin. But with that 10-second time penalty, he will be within that region quite soon, I can imagine, once he comes out of the pit lane again. And Jungi Angle will now take second place, but I don't think he's going to have much more tire life left on these intermediates. And I think the Maiko, if he's lucky, he can get out in clean air ahead of the likes of KDRDN and Ryan, as Lewis also into the pit lane. Levi with the fastest lap, but KDRDN just gets ahead there of the Maiko. So he comes out in P4, quite close behind the Kicksauers on 7 lap old intermediates. So I'm sure he'll be able to get past quite soon enough. And then the gap, I think, to Melvin is around 15-16 seconds. So he only needs to gain a couple of seconds with a 7-lap tire advantage. Shouldn't be too much of a deal, as he gets past the Kicksauer, then on the winning straight, back up in the podium positions. And now he's got clean air to chase after the leading pair, who probably will try and go for as long as they can. But Jungi Angle 9 laps on these intermediates might be starting to get in some trouble in the following laps. As Levi, in the meantime, is back up into P6. He's got ahead of the Grandada. It's now 1.6 seconds behind Ryan. And I'm feeling Ryan and some of these other drivers are going to try and make it to the end on these tires. Ryan and the Grandada pitted at lap 12, I think, the last ones to pit. So they got the best chance of making this one-stop work. But they do need to conserve the tires, and I don't think they can put up much of a fight against the drivers who have just made their final pit stop onto a brand new set of intermediates. As Melvin, he is continuing on for yet another lap, and I think he will be doing that for the remainder of this race. Jungi Angle now 5.6 seconds. The Maiko knows he needs to overtake Jungi Angle on track, but it's going to be 10 laps when he crosses the line. 10 laps on these tires from Jungi Angle. For sure, he's going to start to hit some severe tire problems quite soon, but because he still needs to do 7 more as he starts this one. As Milan Dios is now in P8, he is right behind the Grandada, and would want to get by quite quickly as well, because he wants to get in cleaner. He cannot afford to stay in traffic like this, because then that 10-second time penalty will hurt even more at the very end of the race, as Levi is looking to find a way past Ryan. So both RBs wanting to get by the car they're following as soon as possible. Levi now using a bit of battery, but is struggling on the exit with the back end. The rear tires really not responding that much, and it prevents him from going for the over. Is he going to try and send one to the inside, but it's just a little bit too far behind, and he has to settle for P6 for the time being. But with this tire advantage, it shouldn't take him too long, as Moikali now setting the fastest lap of the race on a brand new set of intermediates as well. But Melvin now leading this race on his 8th lap World Intermediates in the McLaren, and the gap is around 9.3 seconds towards Junkie Angle, and that gap of 7.5 seconds of 2 laps ago is turned to a gap of 2.5 seconds towards the Maiko. So he's already gained 5 seconds in 2 laps time. So the Maiko, it's going to be a matter of time before he gets past Junkie Angle and get within that 10-second range of that 10-second time penalty of Melvin.
I still think that Melvin could be on for a P2, because look at the gap between first and sixth place, 18.3, and Melvin's closest rival is Levi, who's going to go down the inside. No! There's contact between the two, but luckily they both keep it pointing in the right direction. Junkie Angle pits, but Levi's let him through, knowing it's his fault, and he's trying to go around the outside of the inside left this corner, but he has to stay behind. That's a big mistake. They've lost themselves over a second. The gap was 18.3 towards Melvin, now it's 19.3. So that's a big time loss there for Levi. He can't afford to get his couples. He keeps taking big risks to try and get past the McLaren driver, and now he's got Malanga down the inside. He goes into, sorry, not Malanga, Diossi right behind him. Levi tries to go down the inside in towards turn 3, but couldn't quite make it stick, so tried to set himself up out of entry the loop to try and get himself down the inside towards Luffield. We go, Brooklyn to Luffield, but McLaren's defending for dear life. This could pay dividends for Melvin. This could really help the McLaren driver and Melvin to try better his chances of finishing P2 and damage the rotation for the championship after a huge points loss back at the Spanish Grand Prix. I think Levi is staying behind longer than expected. He should have overtaken by a lap ago or two, but he's right behind the McLaren, stuck there. Milan Diossi is right behind him as well for good measure. So this is a bit of a conundrum now. Both racing bulls find themselves in as they're stuck behind. And look at Levi there. He's carrying his speed to the corner, but the McLaren is just an obstacle in the way. Can't get past. There is 5 laps left to go in this race. Melvin will not win this race, but he could finish in P2 due to this stunning defence from his teammates on Levi. Being held up by Ryan, but surely on the straight now there's a big chance to get past him in the slipstream, but no DRS of course. But the McLaren driver seems to have good straight line speed to defend against the racing pullers. Milan Diossi goes down the inside into towards Stowe. He makes the move still, but they both make contact, and one of them's got the track there, which is Levi, but Milan Diossi goes through, and that was a very robust overtake indeed from the racing bull driver. Bearing in mind though, he does have a 10-second penalty, so quite surprised that was a risky move, because surely Levi could have a better chance of trying to get Melvin. But Milan Diossi sends it, and now he's right at the back of the McLaren driver as we head through turn 1 and turn 2. Now coming towards 3. Is he going to go around the outside towards 3? Is he brave? Is he daring? Is he bold? Is he confident to do that? He gets squeezed almost outside the track there as he goes back down the inside. In towards turn 4 we go. But Milan Diossi, he goes through, he sneaks through, and here comes Levi trying to make the move he should have done about one or two laps ago. And now the wheel banging on the straight. Look at that, constant wheel banging between those two. Clearly frustrated drivers, and Levi is now up into P4. They've cost themselves, especially Levi, a whole amount of time, because I think Melvin could get his second place here as well, with that gap being so big between first and fourth place. The gap is 19 seconds. There's no way in 4 laps that gap's going down to under 10 seconds. So I think that Levi being stuck behind the McLaren driver so long has cost him dearly and eliminates his chances of finishing in P2. He will get P3 because Milan Diossi has got that 10-second penalty, and I don't see Milan Diossi building a 10-second gap over his teammate. But Levi has lost so much time there behind the McLaren driver, and he's behind Milan too for good measure. What a move for Milan to go around the outside of the inside line, going towards turn 4, and now Ryan's under pressure from the Grandadder. By the way, the RP drivers did a stunning job so far in this race. Started down in P11, and now he's up into P6 with a great strategy and right to the back on the McLaren driver Ryan. Ryan's been struggling throughout this whole race as well, been on the back foot pretty much this whole race, and he rejoined down in P15 at one point, didn't he, in the first stop. Now he's up into P5, but under massive pressure from the drivers behind. The Grandad has got some good pace in the Alpine, and the Ferrari Pavotox is right behind. Now Napol is holding on to dear life in P8, but he does have a penalty, as here comes the Alpine down the inside in towards turn 3. Ryan's not making it easy as it goes a bit wide, but shut off the inside line going towards turn 4 now. Bit of contact made, wheel to wheel between those two. Tyre banging as well, but it looks like the LP driver, it cannot get past the McLaren. It goes off the track for good measure as we head down towards Brooklands. Meanwhile, the other Alpine driver is on the back of the McLaren driver of Alpine. So both McLarens, both Alpines are in scraps for first place. Let's go on board with DeMarco to see if he takes the lead. As here he is out of cops. DeMarco is in the lead of the Grand Prix, back in the lead. And there's only 3 laps left to go in this race. And the checkered flag will fall shortly. He has driven such a beautiful race, executed everything perfectly to try and win this race, but there's still 3 laps left to go, so he needs to keep his calm, composure, keep it nice and clean, and he should taste victory very soon. Meanwhile, his teammates of the Grandada is stuck behind Ryan, who has such a robust defence against the drivers behind. Such immaculate performance he's doing in McLaren, but it might be short-lived now because they're all over the back of him. And let's see if Pavotox and Grandada can make their way through now as Ryan once again goes defensive, making the Alpine go all the way around the outside. And here comes the Ferrari down the inside. That's Pavotox going down the inside there. Very audacious. And he goes up into P6. What a move there from Pavotox. Took full advantage. But of course, on new intermediate compound tyres. In the background, I saw Napol just weaving out the slipstream there from the Mercedes driver on Junkie Angle. And Junkie Angle is... has 3 laps younger tyres in comparison towards Napoli there as well. Let me get the gap back to interval so we can see. That's because we've seen DeMarco get past. But look at Pavotox then, looking to try and go around the outside, down the inside, looking to switch lines then as we head through the entry and the loop. Could he do it under and over? No, he can't. Can't get the exit he needs because the McLaren plants that car in the middle of the track. But his robust defence may come to an end now as Pavotox is right behind. Can he go all the way around the outside or down the inside in towards Brooklands? No. But will Ryan outbrake himself going towards Brooklands there? No, he doesn't. Keeps the car in the right place at the right time. Such a great defence though from Ryan. Full respect. But he's got 3 laps left of this to do. And it could be very difficult. Kingsman unfortunately retires in this race. And here comes the Ferrari there with the battery. Will it dare go down the inside or on the outside in towards Cops? There's no way, surely. There's no room. And there definitely wasn't any room there. I'm not quite sure what the Ferrari was thinking there, but it goes off the track and rejoins in P6. Luckily, it did not go into an airplane crash or anything like that. Could have been an Isaac Hadjo situation there. As the Grandada picks himself up as 3-second attempt in this race. But I don't think it'll affect him that much either, unless the Junkie Angle catches up as well. But here comes Pavotox once again, rise to the back on the McLaren driver. This time has barely got any US to try and get past him going in towards Stowe. And has to stay behind the McLaren driver once again. The McLaren did a superb job defending despite being on much older tyres in comparison towards the Ferrari. But look at the grip he gets out of Stowe. And now looking to go around the outside as we head down towards the final 3 quarters. But Ryan's defends the inside line beautifully, and he placed the car in the right time in the right place as well to make sure Pavotox does not get through. But Pavotox is doing everything he can, being so frustrated, being stuck behind the McLaren driver, but can't find a way through. And he hits him going towards turn 1 and turn 2 we go. And surely has the inside line in towards turn 3. Gets a much better launch and exit to go down the inside in towards turn 3 as they both go deep in the corner, making contact as we now head through turn 4 we go. Surely he gets the move done here, but clearly not, as Ryan is doing everything he can to keep the Ferrari behind us, go wheel to wheel out of turn 4. Mulcahy has retired as well, but McLaren driver of Ryan is still ahead. I'm not sure how. Great defence there.
Incredible defense, but at the front, Melvin, he's looking like he's in some serious tire trouble. His lap times are like 5 seconds slower than everyone else, and Milan Diels is already at the back of the McLaren drive and will get by quite soon, I think, as well. And this is why Ryan is defending so aggressively, because it's the risk that Pavotox might get ahead of Melvin with that time penalty. Look how close Melvin has got. He's got like 10 seconds gained, 10-15 seconds gained in only a few laps time. And Melvin, he needs to hold on for at least 1 one more lap on these tires. And Milan Dios is going to try 7 up the inside. That was so close with the McLaren driver, who was barely holding on to these tires and trying to defend against the RB. Is going to try and go along around the outside in towards the final chicane, but Melbourne defends aggressively, shuts the door on Milan DLC, and is able to stay in front. Both of these drivers have got a 10-second time penalty. Both of these drivers are in the championship fight, and both of these drivers want to finish in second place, which will become P3. When Levi eventually gets ahead, but Milan DLC is running right at the back of the McLaren driver, is going defensive on the inside. He's going to try and go around the outside, trying to go for the switchback, but now he's going to have the outside line once again, going into the next turn, and he's on the outside, and Melvin not giving a lot of room on the outside, but the better traction is there from Leon Diaz to try and go around the outside, and there's contact between the two, and onto the grass goes our championship leader in an attempt to overtake Melvin there, which he's putting on some very aggressive defending against the RB. Elbows are definitely out on this final lap of the race. The Vico, he's out in front by 15 seconds, but the fight continues on for P2, whilst Ryan is still holding on that massive train behind him to ensure that Melvin finishes on the podium at least, but he still needs to keep behind the RB of Milan DLC, who is our championship leader. So we're going into the final sector of the final lap of the race. The Maiko is going to win this race, but is Melvin going to be able to finish on the podium at least? And is he going to be able to defend against Milan DLC in P3?
This has been a drive-defined control race. Intelligent and relentless speed from D'Amico has been the benchmark from the very first lap to the very last, in conditions that's punished the smallest hesitation and mistake. Lap after lap position as D'Amico comes around the final corner. He wins the British GP. What a spectacular win to get his first win of the season. Spectacular indeed, but this battle between Melvin and Milan's not done just yet as they come through the final 3 corners, but Levi finishing P3. Protox is right behind the McLaren. I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep up with every single battle because there's so much battles going on here. But the Ferrari, down the inside, he goes on Ryan, but can't make the move. Ryan's robust defense has been spectacular. Levi up into P2 for his best result of the season as we make our way out the final corner, side by side between those two. Who will get ahead? It is Ryan who gets ahead. Just what a finish towards the end between those two. And they've been fighting out ever since lap 20 to lap 21. Provotox failed time and time again to get past the McLaren driver, who's been driving on his rear wing mirrors the whole time. What a stunning defense there. And I'm pretty sure that's helped Melvin massively as well, because Melvin's pace was dropping off by a stone, and the guys behind may have caught up if Ryan didn't defend as he did aggressively. And, it was very, very robust indeed, and very hard but fair race, I must say. Times were a bit sketchy, but Ryan did everything he could to keep that Ferrari in behind him, and he had a massive train behind too. But let's talk about that win, because D'Amico has done such a superb job. After missing out in the last couple of races due to strategy, he's come through this far. The pace advantage have been there every single stint, not through risk or desperation, but clean braking, measured throttle application, and a calm understanding of exactly how the car felt and how it could push it. After race this season, where strategy mess-ups and late race decisions robbed him of victory, today has been the complete opposite. Every call correct, every response immediate, every lap reinforcing that this was always his race to lose. Even as the gap stabilised and the pressure lingered behind, D'Amico never overreached, never chased lap time unnecessarily, and never allowed the conditions to dictate his rhythm. This has been the performance that's been coming all season long. A race led not just on the timer screens, but in confidence, composure, and raw execution. And he has finally done it after 5 races before. And he missed out dearly, but he could be the one who could take the championship lead away from Milan Dios. Let's see how far behind he is in terms of the championship. A full deserved win, and very happy for him. He has been super consistent this season. I think he will take the championship lead only by a few points. He has been super consistent so far this season. Top 5 in every single race, and now he's picked up a win. His 4th podium this season too. And looks like his championship is starting to look good so far. It is super close between Milan, D'Amico and Melvin. The pendulum keeps swinging from one way to another in roundabouts, but that's what we love about it. The top 3 have been mighty competitive, but Levi should be very happy too to finish in P2 in this race. It's been a superb drive from him, and try and get Racing Bulls further up the field.
What an incredible race, and I said before the race that I thought D'Amico was going to produce something special, and he certainly did, with an incredible drive, winning by over 20 seconds. Absolutely flawless performance from the Alpine, and takes away the championship lead in style, and definitely putting in a championship-worthy drive, and now certainly in the fight again with Milan Diossi and Melvin, who all three of them once again fought it out on the podium, with Levi just in between in second place. But that sure was another entertaining Grand Prix, a very entertaining British GP as well in the wet, always providing great action, and sure enjoyed this one as always. But we've got 5 races remaining, and the championship battle is heating up even more, and I cannot wait what the rest of the season has in store for us.
Exactly. Now the championship keeps on intensifying race after race, and these drivers can barely afford to make any sort of mistakes and slip-ups like we saw in Silverstone with Milan Diossi and Melvin both inheriting a 10-second time penalty. That could be a tremendous for the championship later on this season, but let's see how it affects them later on. Will they live to regret it, or is it just a minor misdemeanor between those two? But we move on to South America at the Mexican Grand Prix, as we'll see what happens there as well. It can be known for overtaking, and tyre wear is absolutely brutal as well, and engines will be very hot as well, so it's all about time management as well, managing your car, managing your pace, etc., and the setup as well. So let's see how it all goes down at the Mexican Grand Prix. But my name is Jamie Morris. Alongside me has been Milan Langer. And I want to say, Milan Langer, thank you so much for commentating with me, mate.
Thank you as well. It's been a pleasure, as always, and looking forward to the next one.
Thank you, Val. So I'll see you all. We'll see you all later next week on Monday at 8 p.m. for F3 for the Mexican Grand Prix. What a race in Silverstone as usual.